going to call the parking committee to order at 6:48, I believe. Yes, so first comments and suggestions from the audience. Anyone? Okay. And then discussion items. A is the garage management monthly report.
Martin Mwangi with Impact. I'll first of all like to recognize Daryl back there. I've been coming here for 9 years straight. He's never missed a meeting. Honestly, if he missed a meeting, we'll send somebody to his house to do a welfare check. Yeah. Forrest could not come here today. Was not unable to make it today. He's in DC, and he was just not going to be able to make it. So I'm representing him, and he told me to make sure I stay on message, not to digress too much. So I do have a gag order to make sure I stay on message. Things are looking good. Things are looking up. We are meeting the budget. If you look at year to date, the numbers are looking good in both Bicentennial and also Chestnut. If you look at the same period this year versus last year, we are almost $500,000 more than what we made last year. As Bunny says, cash is king. So we bring the check, and the guys who just left, they take the money. We are seeing this all over the place. We can go to the next deck. Even all the other locations that we run, and I take care of municipalities from here all the way to Roanoke in Virginia. Everything is looking up, but we expect things to kind of maybe slow down just a little bit over the summer, and then they'll pick up again in fall. Right now, we still don't know what's going on with tenancy in buildings and also businesses, because a lot of businesses have started adopting different ways of running their business, hybrid models, and so on and so forth. I personally don't expect us to go back to pre-pandemic. We used to be full in both garages. In fact, I know there was a time we were talking about actually looking for another garage. I don't know if Bill, you remember. We were talking about that. So I don't think we will get there at least for another 1 year. Things have to really settle down before we start thinking of that again. But obviously, as things move up, obviously the garages are also going to be full. If you look at we can go to the other deck. All the graphs, everything is looking up. Where you see the dip, that was January when we had the variant. COVID variant, then when we had the snow, the ice, and so on. But obviously now everything is looking up. And again, revenue, same thing, transit revenue. At Chestnut, I'm still trying to figure out why it's almost like we are not like really making a big change. I need to figure out what's going on there. I will check with Dina because obviously I see there's a lot of activity around. Even today, there's a lot of activity with all the restaurants and so on and so forth. Unless they're parking on the street, maybe that's where they're parking. But obviously, we need to check what's going on there. But obviously, Bicentennial things kind of are looking better in terms of the trend. And that's it. So it's good news, good news, good news. No bad news at all. Any questions? There.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It all looks good to me. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so we go to the director's report.
Gonna make a joke. I do have a little bit of bad news about the garages. No, it's just one of the examples of what's a little bit difficult about public sector procurement. So as you know, there's two extensive capital projects going on at both Chestnut and Bicentennial garages. And in this year's capital plan, we had an item to put a coating on one of the surfaces at the Bicentennial Garage. And when you coat the surface, you prevent further intrusion of salt into the concrete, because if you have too much salt in your concrete and it penetrates the depth of the reinforcing steel. I wasn't great at chemistry in sophomore year in high school. That's the last time I studied it. But in the presence of those ions, the iron reacts to it, changes shape, fluctuates, and that's how you get the cracking and the things falling down from the ceiling above down to the grade below. So it's a serious issue to keep salt out of your concrete. And we did core samples at Bicentennial Garage on the roof and other decks. And actually we found on it wasn't the roof deck that was the problem. It was the third deck in the building actually had enough salt intrusion that it threatens the integrity of the reinforcing steel. So our consulting engineer recommended we go ahead with the coating application, but we considered doing it on the third floor instead of the top deck at Bicentennial. I said, why are we doing that? Well, because at the top deck, there is natural rinsing of the salt. That's the one exposed to the weather. So we didn't find the salt intruding far enough into the concrete. So I'm getting to the point of my story. The contractor is mobilized. He's there on site. They bid on the roof coating last year, but we didn't award the alternate bid. And he offered that to us at a pretty steep discount because he was already mobilized. And because of public procurement rules and regulations, we can't take him up on the deal. It was a good deal for him, and it would have been a good deal for taxpayers. We just can't do it. We have to rebid the project, which is going to take time. And he will go through the company will go through their demobilization phase, and we'll be paying for the mobilization again. So it's just one of the things about public procurement. So other than that, that was a long story to give you bad news. The capital projects are wrapping up at both garages. Very little minor cost overrun in Chestnut Street, less than 5%. And it looks like Bicentennial Garage is going to come in at budget. So the last thing we're going to do at Bicentennial is the facade cleaning. So you'll see some pressure washing done on Bicentennial Garage. One other news about the garage is with Martin's help and Forrest's help, and Bill Mann's help, we're looking at payment technology upgrades at both garages. The equipment that is used when you pay your ticket and you get your ticket is antiquated, frankly, and needs to be updated. And by updating it, we're going to achieve some operational efficiencies. Mainly because with the newer technology, we won't have as many instances of call outs, meaning someone having to come to the garage in person to help somebody get out. Because we're currently using a payment technology at the gate when you're leaving the garage. And by eliminating that and going to a ticket-based system that is what's the technology that's used? It's a visual.
Virtual kind of payment or ticketless, or what they call contactless payment.
It's been a really good partnership to work with Martin and Reef on investigating this because it's their business to understand how garages work. They do it 24/7, 365. So they put us in touch with some vendors to start exploring those options. So I'm thinking about that as a 2023 capital item. Getting back to more capital news, we did get our enforcement technology upgrade. The handheld units were delivered. That's a piece of technology. It's a cell phone wrapped in a printer sled. They cost about $2,500 a piece. We got 8 of them. Right, Ocho? Yeah, we got 8 of them.
Use one of them.
Perfect. Even better. They, like a lot of technology, it has a very short life cycle. So the old units were running on their 6th year, I think. So it was time to replace it, maybe even a year overdue to replace them. So now with those new units in, they basically are Samsung phones wrapped in a printer sled. We're uploading our parking utilization survey map that Nick Fink developed, and we're going to start collecting data on parking utilization with the new units. So I'm very excited about that. The last item I have is our usual financial report, which fortunately is more good news. This is an unaudited financial report showing our three main revenue categories, which by year's end are expected to generate $4.2 million and are budgeted to produce $4.2 million in revenue for the year. So that's the bulk of parking department revenue. Over 90% of parking department revenue comes from enforcement. Meters, which includes your multi-space meters and your single-space meters on street, and the net funds disbursement we get from Reef Parking for parking management. So as Martin explained, the best performer out of those three this month was parking in the garages. We were at 164,729 for revenue earned in March. So with continuing positive trends, I expect the May check. The parking garage payment is a month delayed. So what you're seeing under the April column is actually for March activity. Whereas the meters and tickets are for April activity. Bottom line is, when you take those three revenue items, we're about $88,000 exceeding budget to date, which puts us 6% ahead of the curve. April, May, and June are typically best good months. We slow down in the summertime because Westchester University is out, people vacation. That's been the typical pattern. I don't know what this year is going to look like. It's been goofy the last 2 years, to say the least. And then there is typically an uptick around Labor Day going into November and December, and then we drop off again around the holidays. We go kind of our leanest years. Our leanest months are January and February by far. So this is good news because last year we were much later in the year before we started running ahead of budget on these three items. I think it wasn't until we got into August that we started running ahead of budget on the sum of these three items, because we had a pretty aggressive parking meter number in our budget, and the parking meter activity really didn't come back until the fall last year. But good news, we're at $170,000 2 months running now. It's not 2019 numbers, which for April and May were over 200,000, 215, 220, but it's a heck of a lot better than where we've been. And to echo Martin's comments, I think that it might take a while to get completely back there. I think the normal for now for parking activity and activity in general in the town is probably, just looking at parking numbers, probably in the range of 85% or so of what we saw in 2019. So.
Thank you. And now we're going to move on to number 4, approve the April 2022 Parking Committee meeting minutes. Thank you. And is there any other business? Then I would say we are adjourned.